Lighting is a really important part of my artwork for several reasons. It evokes a lot of emotion in the work that I do, but it also defines the shapes. So when I have a general source of lighting and I can control that, then I can also control the shape of the objects that it falls on, and then the cast shadows as well. So especially if you're doing anything that's remotely realism based, you really have to understand how light builds those shapes and builds the atmosphere of the whole environment of the painting. I've done a lot of research on the NASA website and other sites to understand how clouds are actually formed and all the different names of the clouds. And I particularly like cumulonimbus because they're big, billowy clouds. They're very sexy clouds. Everybody goes, wow, when they look at them. And I've done literally hundreds of drawings. So the series Sky Cathedrals was built up on several years of doing a lot of drawings and studies before I actually got into the paintings. And this series is a triptych. It's the second triptych that I did. So what I did is I worked in a multitude of thin layers of acrylic in the background to build the substrate. And then I worked in oils on top to get the clouds. So this, again, you really have to understand how light works on clouds, because clouds are only really visible based on how they contrast with the atmosphere. They are atmosphere, they're moisture, and how light hits them. And so if you look really carefully on a summer day at clouds, they're not white, they're a slight yellow. So you'll see the slight yellow in these clouds, and that's fairly realistic. And then the toning of the cloud has something to do with how dense the cloud is, how much atmosphere there is, and therefore there's less light, but it also has to do with the darkness of the sky in behind. So when I'm doing this, I'm aware of that, the realism of how clouds are actually made, and then having fun with the painterly nature of oil paint, which was my first love. The other thing with this is a triptych, and very few artists work in diptychs or triptychs. It's not a case of taking an image and then chopping it into three. You have to understand how to design a story. So in some ways, it's like writing a book. You've got an overall theme, and then you've got each chapter, and each chapter has to work on its own, but it also has to relate to the next chapter, and the next chapter, and back again. So when I'm doing this, I'm designing it first before I actually get into the painting, and I'll do a number of drawings, and I may even do small little painting sketches before I get into the final painting. But that's how this series came about.